Once again, welcome back to the program. It's generally said that language has the power to uplift us or bring us down. How we say things and how it has an impact on us, we'll be talking on this particular issue today with Kelly Monjazeb. She's a master facilitator with Virtues Project. Let's learn how we can change our language and become better human beings. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Harpreet. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So when we talk about language power, how impactful it can be and what is the importance of having what we say and how we say it?
Yes. Well, as you said, language is very powerful. We have this unique capacity as humans to use language. It's really an incredible thing when you think about it. Pardon me. And how we speak, so the energy, the emotion, the intention that we have behind what we're saying, the emotional condition inwardly has an impact on how our language comes forward.
Right.
And what we say has, the words we use have an incredible power and capacity to either uplift those around us or bring them down.
Right.
We can really hurt those around us with the language that we use, or things we say can be incredibly encouraging and empowering for people.
Right. So how can language empower someone?
Well, again, it's using language that sees the best, the best possibility, the best in us.
Right.
I'll just bring it back to the Virtues Project because this is the material that I use in all my workshops and so on. The first strategy of the project is to speak the language of virtues.
Right.
So this, not only do we look at this list of qualities, so again, I'll name some of them again. So kindness, courtesy, respect, compassion, love, dignity, determination, diligence, excellence. There's a long list of them. So when we bring this language into our homes, into our classrooms, into our communities, we call that quality. We bring it to mind. So then we have something we're working towards. It also helps us to see each other for who we really are, because this is what makes us human. These qualities are what makes us human.
Right.
So if we're not talking about them, we're not mentioning them, we're not mirroring them back to each other, or saying, this is missing. I need you to be more respectful when you're speaking to me, rather than, I hate it when you talk to me like that. Right?
Right.
That I hate it when you talk to me like that doesn't really go anywhere. Whereas if we elevate our language and we say, what is it we're after here? Well, there's some respect missing.
Right.
Let's elevate our conversation and bring in that light of respect so that we can have a good conversation or a good dialogue or problem solve together. Because, as we've talked about before, whenever there's a problem, whenever there's a social issue, it's because there's a lack of one or more of these.
Right.
And not only can we bring them forward in our behavior, but we can bring them forward in our language.
Right. So as you very rightly said, relationships are formed or burnt on the basis of the language which you use.
They really
and that's what we are finding today, that our language, what we speak, has a great impact. And many times wars also start because of this language, what is being used. So if you can take us on this journey, especially starting from the children, because with them we find many a time we scold them and we are always trying to, blame game is being followed and all those kind of things. So what should be kept in mind when dealing with children as far as language is concerned?
Well, first and foremost, that we're modeling. We're modeling, teaching them how to communicate by how we communicate with them. Again, we're moving out of some perhaps outdated ways of parenting into ways that are going to raise children and they grow into human beings that can communicate in a respectful, problem-solving way.
Okay.
If we imagine two people fighting, arguing and yelling at each other, it's kind of the worst of them comes out. The worst of them is being shown. And so it's everyone's responsibility to know that they, again, this theme of we matter, every person matters, how we communicate. So to take it upon ourselves to learn how to communicate well,
right.
to use our capacity for self-control and respect for the other person.
Right.
If we are mindful of that, if we come into a conversation saying to ourselves, I'm going to practice, being detached from my emotions. I'm not going to let my emotions lead. I'm going to, I'm going to be in control here. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to use tact, and wisdom in the way that I speak. Then we have a much better chance of having that communication, be something that's more dignified and can have a good outcome.
Right. And as you said, the dignified language, that makes a lot of difference.
Yes.
But once we get incited by something, and that's what intrigues you, and then you start using demeaning words, or your language changes.
Yes.
So over here, again, it's basically the thought process. You have to be strong internally to have control over your language also. That when some challenge is there, you don't forget about it, and then you keep on continuing with that pleasant language, what you're talking about. So in the Virtues Project, which the things which you talk about, if you can let us know a little bit about that as to how to have control over those thoughts so that you have control over your language also.
Well, this is a lifelong process of developing ourselves spiritually. And so, again, it's a very imperfect journey. We fall down, we pick ourselves back up again,
Right.
We might use language that's offensive, then we need to apologize for that and say, I slipped, or I'm sorry for speaking to you in that manner. But we have to just keep, trying to bring ourselves back to balance, back to center.
Right.
And again, if we've grown up in a family or an environment who's modeled that for us, it takes some effort and some new information and some new education rather to do things differently. But that's what we're here to do right now. If nothing else, we're here to learn to do things differently, collectively and individually.
Right. So there's a concept called from shaming to naming.
Yes.
That's a concept. What does that mean?
Well, that's one of the exercises that's done in the training of the Virtues Project.
Okay.
And it's to recognize that we do come from a culture of shaming language. So we might name call or put the person down in some way.
Right.
Even well-intentioned parents might use shaming language with their kids, like, don't be such an idiot, or, what's wrong with you, That's shaming. That is going to have a negative impact on their self-esteem and their self-worth. So what we want to do is transition from that shaming language to naming virtues. So we need to get familiar with these qualities and this language.
Right.
And that's part of our education. And that's, this project, the Virtues Project, is in over 95 countries around the world. People are really embracing this because, it really gets to the core and the heart of the matter of elevating our human relationships and growing ourselves. So,
so you're talking about that shaming to naming.
Yes, so shaming to naming. So we're going from that kind of language, shaming, to naming the qualities that we want. So I need you to be more respectful when you speak to me. What can you do to practice self-discipline in doing your homework right now?
Okay.
So you're putting out this language to elevate that interaction.
So what research proves is, what impact does this have on the children, especially when you change your approach, how you talk to them?
Yeah. Well, studies are being done just with the Virtues Project itself now. They're doing some research grants and so on when they bring it into homes and schools and communities. When we elevate it, that's one of the most powerful ways we can change the culture, is to change the language. So places where they've had issues with bullying, for example, when they bring in this approach that's very positive, it's very uplifting, it doesn't blame or shame the person who's misbehaving, the bully, so to speak, right? But calls on their respect and self-discipline and giving them an opportunity to repair, to make amends, to repair their relationships so they can come back into community.
Right.
The rate of trips to the principal's office and you know, the issues that parents might be having around discipline reduces.
Right.
Because this language and this approach, which is kind of a restorative justice approach, it's like, we're going to make mistakes, let's get back on track and keep going. You know, it elevates everyone's interactions.
So as you are giving some examples about how this is having an impact on the youngsters, and especially how about the elders, I'd like to discuss about this after this break.
Sure.
We are talking about how language can uplift us or bring us down. And we are having some tips from Kelly Monjazeb, who's a master facilitator with Virtues Project. Let's learn something more. Yeah. So what about the elders, like you were saying? So, for example, you know, you are driving a car, enjoying your music, and you're just concerned with yourself, and you are driving on the right-hand side, it's slow, but somebody overtakes you and points a finger at you, and at that time you lose your cool and you also respond back.
Right.
So at that time, you know, you forget everything.
Yes.
But you have to be strong internally at that time to face or how you are going to, you know, react to something. Because most of the times we react rather than act upon.
Yes.
So what do you feel at these kind of circumstances or in our day-to-day life, how these virtues can have an impact on us?
Yes. Well, I think you raise a point about our capacity and our maturity.
Right.
You know, you mentioned a couple of words, react and respond. So yes, we want to be increasing our capacity to respond rather than have a reactionary. This is when we lose control of ourselves, you know, when we're reacting.
Right.
And we all get triggered. We all get, you know, something hits us. And yes, that is the very moment that we have a choice. We have a choice whether to take a deep breath and not react to that person and respond, and you know, you move on, you know. And so again, who do we want to be in the world? We have to ask ourselves: are we contributing to the disrespect in that moment, or are we contributing to, you know, keeping things peaceful? You know, because an interaction like that can escalate.
Oh yeah.
Right, and it does escalate. We've seen examples of that. So, and then if we find ourselves really having trouble with our reactions, you know, we call that anger management, you know, where someone really has a hard time controlling themselves, then they go get help with their anger, because there are ways that, and I've taught these classes too, that there are triggers, there are things that lead up before that actual reaction takes place. There's usually many things, but we're not aware. We're not conscious that that's going on inside of us. So, you know, again, each person is responsible for their own, you know, social health, you know, how they are contributing to
So you have to be
world.
tactful. You ought to be tactful.
You have to be tactful. And let me read this card, because it speaks to our, the quality of speech and the way we talk. So we think before we speak, aware of how deeply our words can affect another. So again, it's understanding how powerful we are in our social world. You know, we make a difference. We impact those around us. And when our words are weighty, so if we have something significant to say, we weigh our words first before we speak. You know, there's a Persian expression that I heard, to taste your words before you speak them. You know? So
think before you speak.
Yeah, take a moment to say, how is this going to come out? Is it going to be bitter and hurtful? Or, you know, is it going to poison someone's heart? Or, you know, is it going to sweeten, or is it going to problem, right? So to think, let's take, you know, a moment, knowing that they have power to cause pain or uplift. And a harsh word to an intimate, so someone that's close to us, is like a grain of sand in their eye. You know, it really has an impact. And an encouraging word can fill them with confidence. Tact is essential when we feel strong emotions like anger. So again, this is a quality that we can call on. It helps us to discern what to say and what is better left unsaid. Tact is good timing. It is diplomacy of the heart.
Absolutely.
So, these cards are wonderful. Again, you can get these cards on the Virtues Project website.
Right.
It's www.virtuesproject, all one word.com.
Right.
You can also get, parents might be very interested to know that there's a book called The Family Virtue Guide. And it goes through all of these strategies that I've been spending time talking about.
Right.
And it's a wonderful book. And I get many parents many years later saying how impactful, their virtues training or reading that book was for them.
Right.
So I really encourage people to.
So this can be inculcated in you if you have a self-respect and you want to respect others.
Yes.
Because respect is again a very major virtue.
Yes.
And respect, as we find that moderation, respect, these virtues, if you start adopting in yourself, then automatically they start having an impact in your family.
Yes.
And once it is in the family, it's inculcated in you, and triggers cannot then trigger you to do something what you don't want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think the more peace we have in our heart, the more, I use the word spiritual integrity, which to me means lining up with
Right.
these qualities. The more we do that, the more peace we have in our heart, the more serene we feel inside. So it's much more difficult for people to affect us,
Right.
to trigger us. But if we're full of stress and we're not taking time to
Right.
nurture our soul, we're not taking time to calm our mind with prayer or meditation, it's very easy for us to be agitated inside, and then the smallest thing will trigger us,
Right.
So part of it, Harpreet, I think, is to take care of ourselves emotionally and spiritually.
Right.
So that inner part of us is calm, and it can manage all the things that we get bombarded with, all the rude things that happen.
You talk about spiritual alignment. That's a very good word what you have used, and you talked about some things what you can do to be spiritually aligned. But again, this spirituality is the last probably phase in our life which we neglect absolutely. Other priorities are so much that for this, though we claim that on a Sunday we go to the church or somewhere else for one day, and we believe we have done our religious obligation. But this is a part which has to be in us every moment of our life. And it's a learning stage whereby you learn again and again. And it's not going to be just one time. Those triggers are going to trigger you most of the time. How you are strong enough inside, that's what is going to determine how you face those issues.
Yes, for sure. I have an expression of spirit first. That we are spirit first, and we have to think of ourselves as spirit first and live spirit first lives, spirit first relationships.
Right.
That we don't allow the materialism to overcome us and drown us.
Right.
That we have to consciously make effort to put these spiritual thoughts, these spiritual practices, and they are practices.
Right.
I heard recently that, God speaks to us only in a quiet mind. And those thoughts of our, spiritual teachers and so on, they really can resonate with us when we have a peaceful mind.
Right.
And so what are we doing in our homes and in our own personal lives to take that quiet time, to take a moment of reflection and meditation?
Self-analysis.
Yes, reflection. That's part of our spiritual capacity. But again, I think it's to de-stress, because the world is bombarding us. I mean, that's one of the main issues we're dealing with. Would you agree that it's stress? We've just got so much we're dealing with and all these distractions that it's almost crucial and imperative that we take time, like you say, not just on Sundays, but throughout our days to have that conscious contact, to say a prayer or to remember a sacred word or a guidance that we know, that we've been taught, to lead our lives and to direct us. We need to be bringing these things to mind.
So Kelly, what you have mentioned is it's a lifelong process, and again and again it's a hit and trial kind of thing. That it's not going to be just you say that I'm not going to get triggered off, but if that triggers you off, you have to be having control on yourself. Now, over here, over the years, you have been dealing with people, and you are seeing what's happening in the society. Language has a great power, as you said, to uplift or to bring you down.
Yes.
But how to be in that state whereby you have given some examples to have a peaceful mind, to not get stressed, but stress has become an integral part. Despite whatever we want to do, many times we get engulfed by other things. Environment has an impact on us, and we forget the basic virtues what we have talked about. So during those crises, what would be your suggestion towards the end as to how to keep yourself strong so that you can carry on with what you want to do?
Well, it kind of reminds me of having a sickness or a malady, and you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you some medicine or some remedies, you know.
For some time it has an impact, yeah.
Right. But, you know, we're dealing with a spiritual malady. You know, we've been talking these last few shows about the way our culture is. It's sort of, it's missing this quality of spirituality and dignity, and we all want to sort of elevate ourselves and raise ourselves up. So we need to have some medicine. We need to have some things that really support us. So practicing our spiritual traditions, you know, spending time reading our spiritual, you know, books and, you know, surrounding ourselves with people who are also doing their best to practice spirituality in their lives, you know, going to a meditation class or a yoga class or, you know, something, anything to de-stress. I mean, there's going to the pool or, you know, exercising. I mean, from everybody, it's different, right? But we have to be taking care of ourselves spiritually. And part of that is, I think, dealing with the stress so that we're not reactive. So I just wanted to mention, Harpreet, that I do have some upcoming workshops coming up this fall to support couples. In particular, I have a couples group starting at the end of September that's going to run for 5 months. It's all about supporting them to have good communication and that good connection that everybody wants. And it's going to be based on the Virtues Project. But I also encourage people to just go to my Facebook page, which is Spiritual Integrity Coaching. If they look for that on Facebook, I'd love to connect with people.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you. ਅੱਜ ਇਸ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਪੈ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਵਿੱਚ। ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਝਿੜਕ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਕੋਸ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਕੈਲੀ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਜਾਏ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਵਰਤਣੇ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਸੈਲਫ ਸਟੀਮ ਘਟੇ, ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸਮਝਣ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਕਰਨ, ਪਰ ਐਟਲੀਸਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਮੀਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉੱਚਾ ਚੁੱਕ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੱਲੇ ਲਿਜਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵਾਰਤਾਲਾਪ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਨੀਵਾਂ ਵਿਖਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇਕਰ ਕੋਈ ਕਮੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਹਿਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ ਆਰਟ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਤਦ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੇਕਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਹੋਈਏ। ਤੇ ਸਪਿਰਿਚੁਅਲ ਅਲਾਈਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਸੁਣਨ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਦ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜੇਕਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਉਹ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਵੇ, ਚੰਗੇ ਦੋਸਤ ਹੋਣ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੇ ਸੋਚ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਚੰਗੀ ਸੋਚ ਦੇ ਮਾਲਿਕ ਹਨ। ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹੀਏ, ਆਪਣੇ ਗ੍ਰੰਥਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਦਾਇਤ ਜੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰੀਏ, ਨਾ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ ਮੱਥੇ ਟੇਕਣ ਤੱਕ ਰੱਖੀਏ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਡਾਪਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਨਾਲ ਆਟੋਮੈਟਿਕਲੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਨ ਆਏਗਾ, ਸਾਡੀ ਸੈਲਫ ਸਟੀਮ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਹੀ ਕਦਮ ਚੁੱਕ ਸਕਾਂਗੇ। ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਜੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਸਮਾਪਤੀ। ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਲਈ 604 603 75 55 ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਈਮੇਲ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰੋ harpreetsingh@gmail.com। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਨੂੰ youtube.com/harpreetsingh ਤੇ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਪਾਂਸਰਸ ਅਤੇ ਐਡਵਰਟਾਈਜ਼ਰਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਦੌਲਤ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦਿਓ। ਜੇਕਰ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਸਪਾਂਸਰ ਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਡਵਰਟਾਈਜ਼ਮੈਂਟ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰੋ 604 603 75 55। ਸਭ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਫਿਰ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਤਦ ਤੱਕ ਗੁੱਡ ਬਾਏ।